She had attempted to engage him in casual conversation, but every time she opened her lips, it only emphasized the rift felt between them. Desmond turned, a fleeting smirk crossing his face, before he straightened his expression into something more serious. "Of course, my lady. You were detailing your plans for the garden. Aren't you supposed to know everything that happens here?" she snapped, her tone sharper than intended. She dropped the knife onto the cutting board, relishing the sharp clang that disrupted the stillness. Sometimes it's best to let things unfold in their own time. His amber eyes were steady, a reflection of the conflicted emotions swirling beneath the surface. As their gazes locked, a crackling silence enveloped the room, heavy with anticipation. Moments stretched, unbroken, as their breaths mingled, the air thick with unspoken words. Outside, a faint commotion echoed through the estate as Lady Laelani's husband, Rowan Sinclair, barked orders. Hints of his power and arrogance reverberated throughout the walls, serving as a dark backdrop to their fragile sanctuary. In the adjoining room, Paddington, the eccentric family cook, bustled about, tying an apron around his waist, his potbelly jutting out like a caricature of domesticity. "Des, wouldn't mind grabbing me some more time?" His voice sliced through the tension. But it wasn't enough to dispel the weight that hung between Laelani and Desmond. Laelani continued chopping, each slice morphing into a desperate gasping for release from the oppressive silence. "I think thyme would be the least of our worries," she replied, her voice wavering slightly. "Is it? What are you afraid of?" Desmond asked, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, yet his body language beckoned her closer. "Losing everything," she admitted, her voice a silken whisper barely escaping her lips, the truth of it sending flutters through her chest. It wasn't just the fear of her marriage, it was the dread of the life she felt suffocated within. Before she could stop herself, Laelani stepped closer, the heat radiating from him almost too much to bear. She could feel the maddening draw, the perilous attraction that ignited her very core. And he, too, found himself leaning towards her, the space between them practically disappearing. A fragile breath vibrated, a silent plea for intimacy that neither intended to voice openly. "Your husband's world, it will consume you," Desmond cautioned, his voice low and grave, as if pronouncing the half-truth of their circumstances. The kitchen faded away, filled only with the rhythm of their own heartbeats, raw and interwoven with desperation. Suddenly, Paddington's laughter broke the spell, thickening the air with awkward levity. "You two are always at it, aren't you? Like two cats at dawn." Laelani flushed, torn between embarrassment and frustration. "You have no idea," she shot back, her eyes catching Desmond's, recognizing the shared annoyance. "Maybe we should just lock you in the pantry until you confess your secrets," Paddington teased, chuckling as he shuffled toward a cabinet. "Keep dreaming, Paddington," Deacon, the estate's groundskeeper, replied, walking in with a basket of fresh herbs. "We've all secrets, but love's the one you'll never understand." The laughter was infectious in the room, deflecting the intensity momentarily. Yet as Laelani and Desmond held their gaze, an understanding thrummed beneath the surface. Not even the interruptions could mask the undeniable connection that crackled like dry leaves caught in an autumn wind. Laelani leaned closer to Desmond, then whispered, "You're right, but if I let go of him, what will I have?" Desmond held her gaze, his expression inscrutable. "Perhaps joy," he said softly, his sincerity igniting the corners of her heart. But just as the air filled with potential, a muffled shout rang from outside, and the laughter abruptly turned into tension again, shadows creeping once more into the corners of their sanctuary. The walls of her life were closing in, and Laelani found herself caught between duty and desire, right at the edge of a precipice. "Are we ever truly free?" she pondered aloud, each word a direct challenge to the world they navigated. "Not until we decide what we're willing to risk," Desmond replied, the weight of his words settling between them like a promise, heavy and unyielding. And for a moment, as tension enveloped them, the kitchen morphed into a battlefield of emotions, each unaddressed feeling sharpening like a blade. Laelani could hear the distant chaos outside, yet within this confined space, a revolution was brewing, one that she had yet to embrace. Scene 86, Crossroads of Fate. The grand estate felt both magnificent and smothering. each opulent tapestry and gleaming chandelier hanging overhead like a perpetual reminder of the weight that pressed down on Laelani Sinclair. The daylight slanted through the tall windows, painting the walls in a warm haze that belied the turmoil churning within her. She wandered into the conservatory, where damp earth mingled with the sharp tang of blooming jasmine, the sweetness clawing at her throat. Here, amidst the kaleidoscope of colours, she sought solace, or perhaps clarity. Desmond Carver, leaning against the room's frame, his handsome profile silhouetted against the afternoon light, made her breath hitch. Despite their distance, she felt the magnetic pull that had been igniting between them ever since he had entered her life in that quiet, unassuming way, like the softest whisper of wind before a storm. Today, however, a storm of a different kind raged in her mind. She wanted to throw caution to the wind, to abandon her carefully constructed life, yet the fear of the unknown snagged her heart like a thorn. "Why do you linger here?" Laelani asked, her voice a slight tremor, echoing the uncertainty that haunted her. She stepped closer, feeling the tension between them ripple through the air like electricity. Desmond's dark eyes locked onto hers, revealing a turmoil of their own. "This place is beautiful, but it can also be a cage," he said, his voice low and thoughtful, as if he were peeling back layers of his own sorrow, layer by layer. Laelani's heart raced at his admission, a vulnerability exposed for a fleeting moment, and it set the tone for their encounter. They moved toward each other, and the invisible barrier that had stood between them began to dissolve. The scents around her heightened her senses, making everything feel sharper, as if the very air was steeped in their unsaid dreams. "But what happens when the cage is gilded?" Laelani pressed, her tone imbued with both challenge and a hint of longing. "Are we to embrace the bars just because they shine?" In response, Desmond stepped forward, his presence a comforting force, yet unmistakably dangerous. He brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear, sending a tremor down her spine. "You're not a bird, Laelani. You are the storm. You have the power to disrupt the stillness." The intimacy of the moment wrapped around them, the world outside fading until it was merely an echo. It was in this suspended reality that Laelani knew she must choose. Safety or love, the predictable confines of her life, or the reckless promise of desire that Desmond represented. "Do you think I should make a choice?" she asked quietly, searching his depth for answers she knew he couldn't provide. Desmond hesitated, the weight of his silence pressed against her chest as she held her breath. The wildness of his spirit beckoned her, a darker thrill blending with the sunlit softness of the eternity encapsulated inside their gaze. "What do you truly desire, Laelani?" he countered, his question heavy, layered with meaning. Suddenly, the bud of longing within her ruptured, blooming into clarity. She stepped closer still, their bodies almost touching, and whispered, "You." In an instant, the air turned molten with unspoken desire. Desmond's hand tangled in the curls at the nape of her neck, anchoring them both to this moment. His lips hovered just a breath away from hers, the suspense thick enough to taste, igniting a flame in her core that had long been dormant. Then, it happened. With a gentle pressure, he closed the distance. The kiss was tentative at first, an exploration not just of lips, but of longing, of a yearning so profound it felt spiritual. Laelani melted against him, her soul laid bare in that flicker of intimacy, his hands cradling her face, igniting sensations that were both thrilling and terrifying. Their breath mingled, a soft symphony that filled the space as she surrendered to the moment. In this stolen fragment of time, wrapped in the scent of jasmine and the tension of their decision, everything else faded away. The world around them receded, their passions dancing like flames against a night sky, as they faced the crossroads of fate together. As they parted, breaths mingling in the charged atmosphere, Laelani's heart bled with anticipation. What now? The question hung heavy, an unspoken truth lingering like the heady aroma of jasmine. Scene 87. Bravery among shadows. The grand hall of Sinclair Manor loomed with an oppressive silence, the weight of gilded chandeliers casting long shadows that cloaked Laelani and Desmond in an air of conspiratorial intimacy. The polished marble floor reflected their tension, each step echoing the heartbeat of their unspoken fears. Outside, the wind whispered against the tall oaks, a foreboding reminder of the storm brewing within their lives. Laelani stood near the fireplace, her hand brushing against the mantel like a secret she couldn't help but reveal. The crackling flames illuminated her eyes, dancing with uncertainty and a fierce determination that captivated Desmond. He approached, the well-tailored lines of his butler's uniform, an ironic contrast to the fire blazing in his soul, hidden beneath layers of duty and desire. "Are you ready?" Laelani asked, her voice a mere tremor, as if the very question could shatter their delicate moment. Desmond paused, their eyes locking, the world around them vanishing. "We have no choice," he replied, a hint of gravity in his tone that resonated with the urgency of their situation. He stepped closer, the warmth radiating from him, wrapping around her like a protective cloak. "This is the last chance for us to confront him." Laelani swallowed hard, recalling the deep void in her heart, one created by the weight of her husband's shadow. "His empire is dangerous, Desmond. I can't underestimate what he's capable of." "Then let's not give him the chance," he said, his conviction igniting something deep within her. Desmond reached out, his fingers grazing her arm, a touch so charged that it sent shivers across her skin. Meanwhile, just beyond the thick mahogany doors, Lawrence Sinclair paced, his voice rising in a furious altercation with his men. "You must find them. No one leaves my household without my command." His fury lingered like smoke, building an atmosphere ripe for chaos. His reputation for ruthlessness extended throughout the city. Whispers of betrayal traced back to his dealings, murmurs of danger hidden behind every gilded smile. Back inside, Desmond's thumb brushed over Laelani's wrist, grounding her amidst the storm of uncertainties whipping through her mind. "I won't let him destroy you, Laelani. Whatever happens, I'll stand by you." His sincerity wrapped around her like soft silk, bringing forth a wave of emotion that almost overwhelmed her. "Desmond," she breathed, longing intertwined with fear as she leaned closer, the air crackling between them. "What if we can't?" "We will," he cut in softly, leaning down to close the distance, their breaths mingling in the precious few moments before the inevitable chaos. The flickering firelight danced between them, mirroring the tumult of their emotions, romantic, perilous, and undeniably electric. As their foreheads almost touched, Laelani's heart thundered against her chest, the boundary between freedom and loyalty stretching thin. "I've never felt this way before," she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice echoing louder than the gathering storm outside. "Neither have I," Desmond confessed, the warmth of his breath against her lips igniting a wildfire of suppressed feelings. There was a recklessness in their closeness, a moment suspended in time, pulsing with unfulfilled passions and the pull of their hidden lives. Suddenly, noise erupted outside the hall, shouts and the clang of metal. The moment was fractured, the spell nearly broken. "We have to go," Laelani urged, pulling away, but Desmond grasped her hand, firm and unyielding. "Together," he insisted, drawing her back into his embrace. A gentle motion, yet it held the strength of an unyielding bond. The chemistry crackled between them, a poignant reminder of everything at stake. The world beyond could roar its fury, but here they were shielded by the warmth of each other. "Together," she echoed, her resolution blooming in the midst of fear. With a shared glance recalling their perilous path ahead, they braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation. Desmond drew closer once more. "Whatever happens, I promise you this, we will rise from these shadows." As their lips met in a soft, electric kiss, the moment faded into the impending storm, passion vying with duty, two souls trapped in a web of longing and danger. The connection deepened, breathing life into their courage amid the looming chaos outside the manor's walls. Scene 88. The Last Stand. The moon shone with an almost ethereal glow over the sprawling estate, casting long shadows that danced along meticulously trimmed hedges of the garden. It was a place of manicured beauty, but tonight it felt more like a maze. Laelani Sinclair stood in the moonlit courtyard, her heart racing. A trembling breeze rustled the silk of her gown, and she was acutely aware of the tension that pulled at her chest, tightening like a noose. Nearby, Desmond Carver was a silent shadow, his presence a calm strength in her turbulent world. "Do you hear that?" Laelani whispered, her eyes scanning the darkness beyond the garden walls. A distant rumble of engines stirred the air, just as the unmistakable sound of footsteps approached, a slow, deliberate march of men trained to instill fear. Desmond's jaw clenched, and his eyes narrowed as he turned towards the sounds. "We don't have much time. They're coming for you," he said, his voice a low but firm anchor, grounding her with urgency. "Follow my lead." The weight of their predicament crashed over her. The duel between honor and her heart echoed in her bones. She had loved her husband, but his world, the one Laelani had been desperate to escape, now threatened to engulf her entirely. As they ducked behind a wrought iron gate, the night felt alive with danger. The scent of lavender mingled with the metallic tang of approaching chaos. Her gaze lingered on Desmond, whose body language spoke volumes, an intensity that showed he was ready for battle, yet underneath that passion lurked fear too. The fear of losing her. "Desmond," Laelani began, but her words were swallowed by the rising engine's roar. "Let's plan our escape first," he interrupted, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored her own uncertainty. The connection between them crackled, a firm promise hanging in the air, but they had a moment to seize before their hearts could be laid bare. Suddenly, two men, clad in dark suits and armed with harsh glints of metal, surged into view, scanning the grounds as they closed in. Laelani's breath caught as Desmond stood closer, their bodies almost touching. The urge to lean into him was overwhelming. Her body sang with unacknowledged desire. "Stay still," he murmured, close enough that his breath danced across her cheek. Laelani could taste the tension in the air between them, and her heart thundered against the constraints of her corset. It felt like a fragile barrier, obscured by the weight of expectations and secrets. "Desmond, I can't go back." Laelani pushed out, high stakes lingering in their unspoken connection. "Neither can I," he replied, determination etching lines into his features. The vulnerability in his eyes pierced through her resolve. "But first, we need to outsmart them. I have a plan. Just trust me." Before she could respond, the men's voices surged closer, their words harsh and impatient. With the shimmer of moonlight reflecting off the guns, the atmosphere crackled with urgency. Desmond seamlessly transitioned from a spark of passionate tension to decisive action. He caught her hand, leading her behind a stone fountain that bubbled softly, a stark contrast to the looming violence. As adrenaline coursed through him, he peered over the edge, calculating their options. "They likely think I'm just a servant. We can turn that to our advantage." Laelani watched him, bewitched by the intensity of his spirit. "What are you thinking? If we create a diversion—" Desmond glanced back, a glimmer of mischief crossing his serious countenance. "You'll need to rouse the gardener, Mr. Newbanks. He knows these grounds better than anyone, long enough to secure our exit." Laelani chuckled despite the dire circumstances. "Only you would resort to the gardener while we're under siege." "Desperate times, Laelani," he replied, a nod to the darkness they faced together, changing the very essence of their connection. But a flicker of something deeper ignited between them, an unyielding bond forged in this fiery crucible of chaos and trust. As she moved to enact Desmond's plan, he gripped her wrist for a heartbeat longer. "Whatever happens, remember." The words fell heavy with meaning, each a promise wrapped in uncertainty. "I know," she said softly, her heart filled with both panic and an emerging sense of love that felt vital in these violent moments. In that heartbeat, silence enveloped them before the thud of the men's boots broke through again. They were out of time. "Go!" Desmond ordered, urgency propelling her forward into the fray, never losing the connection that tethered them deeper than mere survival. Scene 89. A collision course. The damp air hung heavily over the estate grounds, thick with the scent of freshly dug earth and the distant sweet smoke curling from the fireplace within. An opulent facade loomed over Laelani Sinclair, concealing the chaos simmering just beneath the surface. Her heart thundered in rhythm with the drumming rain as droplets pattered against the slate roof, an unsettling staccato echoing the turmoil she felt inside. Through the storm, shadows emerged, blindsiding the serenity she had tried so hard to embrace. Laelani rushed through the opulent halls adorned with gilded mirrors and heavy drapes, her heart echoing Desmond's name like a desperate prayer. There were whispers of rebellion in her soul, roused entirely by the man whom society deemed her servant. Their bond had ignited a fire she could neither fully understand nor dismiss, a blaze threatening to consume the life she had known. As she reached the main corridor, the door flew open, slamming against the wall with a resounding thud. Desmond Carver, tall and poised, surged into the room, soaked from head to toe, his breath hitching at the sight of her. His black hair curled at the edges, framing a face that was both rugged and magnificent, a beacon in their world of deception. "Desmond," Laelani gasped, hands trembling at her sides. "Lady Laelani," he began, but the moment was shattered by the distant roar of engines, the throaty growls of approaching vehicles. Her pulse quickened. "Not now," she whispered, grabbing his arm, but the urgency pooled in Desmond's eyes as he glanced toward the door. "They've found us." Laelani's stomach clenched, a cold fear entwined with a strange thrill. She had always followed the path of decorum, but in this moment, the thrill of defiance coursed through her. "What do we do?" Desmond's gaze locked onto hers, a tumultuous sea of emotions as he tightened his hold on her arm. "We prepare to fight. You need to hide." "Hiding is no longer part of my life," she snapped, the words igniting between them like a flame. "I won't cower while you face this for me." "Damn it, Laelani. You don't understand." "No, you're the one who doesn't understand." Her voice rose, sharp with frustration and a venomous mix of longing. "I refuse to be the pawn in this game, and if you think I'm stepping aside while you do the dirty work, then you've underestimated my resolve." Their heated exchange was cut short by the clattering of boots on the stone path outside, the ominous thud of approaching men heralding violence. "While we stand here bickering, you're putting your life at risk," he said, urgency thickening his tone. "You mean everything to me. I won't let them take you." The air crackled with tension as he stepped closer, their faces so near now she could scarcely breathe, could only feel the weight of his determination mingled with the tantalizing ache of desire. Just then, the door burst open, revealing a pack of men dressed in dark clothing, brandishing weapons with the casual confidence of a crime lord's machinery. Laelani's heart raced at the sight, not of the armed men, but of how fiercely Desmond held his guard before her, imposing yet protective. A shout erupted, cutting through the air. Desmond's eyes blazed with purpose. "Get to the stairwell! Now!" But Laelani's resolve again rose like a tide, and instead of fleeing, she stepped beside him. A silent solidarity formed in the firelight of their shared peril. As the men advanced, Desmond steeled himself, muscles taut and ready, every bit the knight she had always imagined. "Together, then," Laelani said firmly, and with that, time snapped taut, a jagged line intersecting their lives as chaos erupted. Desmond lunged forward, knocking a bottle from a nearby table that shattered at the feet of their attackers, scattering glass like fragile flowers in a raging storm. The assault began, a flurry of fists and adrenaline, Desmond striking with a practiced precision. Laelani watched in awe as he moved fluidly, each motion a testament to his hidden prowess, the strength beneath the poised exterior she had grown to admire. Their connection pulsated with each blow he landed, each new challenge demanding they entwine their fates further against the looming threat. In this wild dance of danger, the unspoken promise of their shared defiance surged between them. Just as the last of the men hit the ground, panting and defeated, Desmond turned his fiery gaze back to Laelani, the unbreakable bond between them tightening, a tether of love in the chaos. Her heart swelled, and she whispered breathlessly, "What now?" "Now we run," he replied, determination lacing his voice as he reached for her hand, the heat of his palm igniting hers. Together, they stepped into the shadows, ready to face whatever storm awaited them. Scene 90. Facing the past. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the sprawling estate of Sinclair Manor, illuminating the moments of quiet before the storm. Laelani Sinclair, her delicate fingers trembling slightly, polished an ornate silver candlestick in the grand dining room. Each swipe of the cloth held an echo of her preparations for yet another dinner meant to mask the turmoil churning within her. The way the flickering light reflected in the polished surface felt like a metaphor shining bright, yet betraying a chaos beneath. "Desmond," she said, her accent rich with the cadence of her thoughts, trying to gather her scattered emotions. She had wanted to say more. She wished she could unravel the tension between them like so many times before, but the air felt heavy, thick with unspoken words. Desmond Carver, standing at the doorway, his strong frame partially silhouetted against the fading sunlight, watched her with a mix of admiration and concern. His brow furrowed slightly, suggesting that behind his stoic facade lay a tempest brewing as well. You don't always have to play the perfect host. His voice was low, yet it carried a weight that resonated deeply within her. She finally raised her gaze, meeting his intense brown eyes, an entire universe captured within their depths. "And you don't have to be so perceptive," she quipped. He stepped further into the room, closing the door softly, erasing the barriers between them. "Perhaps it's the only way to protect myself from the storm that's brewing." Laelani felt a crack in her facade, a vulnerability that flickered in her sharp breath. She set the candlestick down, the soft clink echoing like a bell tolling. "What if it's too late to protect ourselves?" she asked, a deeper meaning hanging in the air like the scent of lavender from the garden, sweet yet suffocating. His jaw clenched at her words, his eyes reflecting something raw and intense. "Then we face it together." The promise hung heavy, like a declaration of war against the uncertainties swirling in their lives. From outside, laughter erupted. A group of Laelani's friends had arrived for the evening gathering. Their jubilant voices carried in from the garden, each call an unwelcome reminder of the world they both longed to escape. "I'm supposed to be out there," she breathed, her eyes glistening as the tension morphed into longing. "Then let them join the masquerade," Desmond murmured, stepping closer, their shared breath colliding. With a sense of conviction, he reached around her waist, pulling her delicately toward him. The world faded, the regal ballroom, the society gossip, all of it became secondary to the electric connection that ignited between their bodies. And then a sudden knock echoed through the manor sharp, fracturing the bubble they'd created. Desmond released her, the tension dissipating into the thick air like a wisp of smoke. "That's my cue," he said, though his voice bore the weight of longing. Laelani swallowed hard, forcing herself to step back. "No, this isn't right. We can't hide in this." She couldn't finish, not with authority. Every moment spent with him felt like marking an erasure of the duty she had to uphold, to her family, to her husband, to herself. But what was the price of that duty? There was a moment of silence as they stared at each other, their destinies intricately entwined with unheeded passion and hidden truths. "Laelani, burying the past won't save us. It will only haunt us," he urged, the raw emotion deepening the space between them. "What about the future?" she whispered, her breath trembling at the thought of the unseen consequences awaiting them. "Then we write our own," Desmond replied, his voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "But that means facing the ghosts you fear most." His statement echoed through the vast chamber that had once felt welcoming but now loomed with shadows. As laughter drifted languidly through the open window, Laelani wrestled with her heart amidst the sounds of joy. Desmond's presence filled the silence, unyielding and honest. They were bound by desire and pressed by circumstances. Was the safety of the known worth more than the anguish of longing? Her heart raced, resonating with the feelings she had kept at bay for too long. "Then I must face them," she declared, her chin lifting. "Tonight, not just for us, but for who I truly want to be." Desmond's eyes glimmered, pride and something deeper mixed within. "Together," he confirmed, his voice inviting her into a territory both thrilling and dangerous. A final breath passed between them, sharp and electric, prompting Laelani to step away. Unseen worlds awaited beyond the thresholds of deep-seated loyalties, but at that moment, their connection tethered them to an uncertain but fiery path forward. Scene 91. Emerging from darkness. The battle had been a cacophony of chaos, heavy with echoes of shouts and the sound of collisions that reverberated through the night air. But now, as the dust settled, all that remained was a profound silence. Desmond stood at the edge of the crumbling estate, gazing into the darkness that surrounded him. The moonlight cast a pale glow across the scene of disarray, torn fabric, broken glass, and remnants of a life once orderly. Laelani emerged from behind him, her breath heavy and her heart racing. The backyard, once a lush garden of beauty, now resembled a battlefield as memories surged within her, breathing life into both fear and determination. She took a moment to fully absorb the events that had transpired, a chaotic whirlwind of secrets and unveiled motives. "I didn't think it would come to this," she murmured, brushing off remnants of dust from her skirts, though the weight of the moment clung to her like the night's chilly air. Desmond turned to her, the intensity of his gaze softened by vulnerability, an expression she seldom saw. Neither did I, but we're still standing, aren't we? His voice held an undercurrent of uncertainty, layered over with fierce resolve. Barely, she replied, a shaky smile breaking through her tension. I didn't expect. The thrust of feelings welled up within her, a mix of relief and confusion. She took a step closer, her heart still pounding with adrenaline. I didn't expect to feel so alive. He stood, his stance commanding, yet unexpectedly gentle, as if he understood the weight of her words. Alive can be overwhelming when you've existed in shadows for too long. The moonlight illuminated his sharp features, casting him in shades of grey, as though he were caught between worlds, one foot in the safety of order, the other in the chaos they had just escaped. Laelani nodded, feeling a tide of emotions wash over her. Her gaze fell to the ground as she struggled to find a way to articulate all that had shifted within her. The weight of society holds me prisoners, she confessed quietly, wringing her hands. Yet here, amidst this wreckage, I feel free. Free to break all the rules. With a sudden move, he reached for her hand, their fingers brushing, electricity sparking between them. Then let's forge a new path, Laelani. You deserve to choose, the thrill of the unknown versus the chains of expectations. A gust of wind rippled through the air, sending a shiver across her body. The sensation brought her back to reality, their closeness grounding her. And what about you, Desmond? She asked, pulling her eyes to his. What do you desire? Her question hung in the air, clarity dawning between them. Desmond was more than just an investigator. He carried burdens of his own. I've sought justice, but perhaps... His voice dropped to a whisper. Perhaps what I truly seek is connection. The candidness of his confession struck her like a thunderbolt. The quiet intensity of the moment enveloped them, the chaotic strife fading like echoes into the night. Laelani could feel her heart swell with emotion as the tension shifted, their complex lives intertwining in a way that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time in ages, she felt entirely seen. The walls of her suffocating existence began to crumble, exposing a desire that had long been dormant. Then let's not just survive, let's live, she urged, uncertainty mingling with hope. Desmond stepped forward, the distance between them vanishing. Together, their eyes locked, a promise unspoken, but undeniably felt. And then, as if pulled by an invisible force, they leaned closer, their foreheads pressing together. Time slowed, and the warmth of their breath danced in the cool air. Together, Laelani whispered, her heart racing, brimming with possibilities. But just before their lips brushed, a metallic clatter echoed nearby, breaking the intimacy, forcing them back into the reality of their chaotic world. Shadows shifted, revealing a silhouetted figure emerging from the now desolated corner of the garden, setting off an adrenaline-fueled rush that sent their hearts into a frantic race once more. We have to go, Desmond urged, his voice turning towards urgency. Now. Laelani took a step back, the electrifying moment slipping away like sand through her fingers. Then let's escape this darkness, together. The promise of their connection lingered between them, powerful enough to propel them forward even as the danger loomed ahead. Scene 92. A new dawn. The sun rose over the horizon, casting a warm golden light through the large window of the Sinclair estate, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air. Laelani stood at the edge of her favorite garden, fidgeting with the hem of her dress, the scent of blooming jasmine tangling with the freshness of dew-kissed grass. Desmond approached from behind, his footsteps soft against the ground. What's holding you back, Laelani? He asked, his voice low and steady. She turned to him, her caramel skin glowing in the morning light, shadows still hiding beneath her eyes. Do you ever feel like every decision you make sends ripples through your life, promising joy but threatening to drown you at the same time? Desmond considered her words, the question settling into him like a pebble dropped into a still pond. Sometimes it feels less like a ripple, he replied, a hint of a smile flickering across his lips, more like a tidal wave. Laelani chuckled softly, the sound warm yet tinged with melancholy. You always have a way with metaphors, Mr. Carver. Are you not the poet of the estate? Only when the subjects inspire me, he said, stepping closer, their eyes locking with an intensity that sent an electric thrill racing between them. Behind them, the deep green lawn sprawled toward the horizon, where silhouettes of trees brushed against the awakening sky. Birds chirped as if to applaud the burgeoning connection. In the distance, the sound of laughter erupted, a light-hearted banter among their friends who were gathered for breakfast, an invited distraction that echoed through the gardens. Standing by one of the enormous oak trees, Alexis, Laelani's spirited cousin, gestured wildly, animatedly recounting the flamboyant tale of her latest romantic misadventures. And I told him, "You have to decide. Are you a man of your word, or just another beautiful face in the ballroom?" Her laughter rang clear, infectious. He looked so bewildered, you'd think I'd dropped a tart in his lap. The men at the table roared with amusement, including Omar, Laelani's closest childhood friend, who feigned swooning at her dramatic flair, clutching his heart theatrically. "What confidence! I swear!" Alexis Sinclair, the woman with a tongue sharper than a tailor's needle. The warmth of their laughter drifted to Laelani and Desmond like a gentle breeze, but it faded as the reality of their own conversation settled in. "Do you think we could ever have that kind of lightheartedness? Or is it just a facade that keeps us from looking deeper?" Desmond asked, his brow furrowing. Laelani hesitated, her heart aching with the weight of her choices. What if smiling on the surface meant turning a blind eye to pain underneath? I don't know if I have the strength for that anymore. "Strength isn't the absence of fear," Desmond said, his voice softening, tinted with sincerity that anchored her. "It's choosing how to navigate it." A moment of silence hung thick in the air, profound yet delicate. Desmond's eyes searched hers, the vulnerability in his gaze slicing through her defenses. "I want to navigate it with you." Laelani's breath caught. She took a small step toward him, tilting her head slightly as if to admire him truly for the first time. "Desmond, what are you really suggesting?" Just then, the back door of the estate creaked open, and Lady Sinclair, Laelani's mother, stepped out, her presence shimmering with authority, momentarily pulling both their attention. "Children, breakfast is served. I do hope we're not discussing the state of affairs again this early," she quipped, a shiver of an understanding passing between her and Laelani. Desmond straightened, the tension shifting as he resumed a professional stance. "Of course, Lady Sinclair. Can't let the delightful conversation distract us too much." "Not when there are pastries to devour," Laelani's mother replied, a twinkle in her eye. "And trust me, I know a few secrets of my own that might just sweeten the pot." They ventured back toward the laughter, but Laelani felt the tension still warm and heat filling the space between them, a promise lingering unspoken as they joined the others. "What I was trying to say," Desmond whispered, just before entering the throng, his breath brushing her ear, "is that I want us to be something more than just shadows in each other's lives." And with that, the sun rose higher, draping them in the brilliance of a new dawn, their paths forever entwined, fraught with promise, yet riddled with doubt. Scene 93, Rebuilding Trust. The morning sunlight spilled into the lavish Sinclair estate, illuminating the intricacies of the wallpaper and cascading across the polished oak of the dining table, where Laelani Sinclair sat, meticulously arranging a bouquet of wildflowers. Each stroke of her fingers tugged at the memories of simpler times, before the chaos and secrets had woven themselves into her life, before Desmond had become both her confidant and her chaos. From the adjacent kitchen came the rhythmic clatter of utensils as Desmond Carver prepared breakfast. The aromas of buttery croissants mingled with fresh coffee, enveloping Laelani in an ambiance of warmth and comfort. Yet, despite the allure of her surroundings, an unease coiled tightly around her heart, echoing the tension that simmered between her and Desmond. "Does this bouquet speak to you?" Laelani asked, trying to breach the delicate silence that had settled like dust over their fractured trust. She lifted a vibrant scarlet bloom, its petals soft and inviting against her palm. Desmond peeked through the doorway, an amused yet shadowed expression gracing his features. "It speaks of your conflicting emotions. The red is bold, yet you choose plants that seem untamed." He stepped into the room, the gentle swagger in his stride betraying a confidence that set her heart aflutter. Laelani smiled, but the fragility of their recent decisions lingered in the air like an unresolved note. "Well, perhaps it reflects my desire to break free from expectations. Wouldn't you agree?" A rebellion in a vase, he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief, a hint of vulnerability spirited beneath his words. Sometimes beauty can become a function of chaos. She studied him, captivated by the subtle shifts in his demeanor. And does chaos frighten you, Desmond? His laughter filled the space, rich and earnest. Only when it leads to others getting hurt. But I think we are both tangled in that sentiment, are we not? The laughter between them evaporated, replaced by an unspoken tension. Laelani inhaled deeply, the fragrance of lavender in the bouquet mixing with the brewing coffee, grounding her. I know we have issues to sort through. I don't want to repeat past mistakes. With a sudden determination, Desmond gathered the courage to approach her. Then let's start anew, together. As he stood before her, the air pulsed with an electricity that was hard to ignore, a potent blend of admiration and longing. She felt the pull between them, an almost magnetic force, daring her to breach the distance they had both created. Each heartbeat thudded like an assertion. Could they truly rebuild the trust that once felt so effortless? Desmond, she began, but he preempted her, stepping closer until the air thickened with tension. Trust takes time, Laelani, he said, his voice low and earnest. And I promise to show you what it means if you let me. Her pulse quickened. What will that look like? Like this. Desmond extended a hand toward the flowers. The touch of their hands ignited a ripple of awareness, sparking an unexpected intimacy that made her shiver. Amidst this fragile moment, the fading echoes of laughter flourished from the adjoining room, where Lady Sinclair's sister, Gianna, held court. Desmond, if you burn the pancakes again, I will abandon ship, Gianna shouted, her tone coloured with playful exasperation. Both Laelani and Desmond chuckled, their tension easing momentarily as laughter swept through the air, infusing life into their esteemed gloom. Laelani turned back toward the bouquet, and as she gently brushed her fingers over the rough texture of a green leaf, she said, "Isn't it interesting how our family thrives on chaos?" Desmond returned with playful gravity. And yet, chaos breeds connection, as does honesty. The sound of Gianna and their other household companions drifted in, a reminder of the unpredictability that surrounded them. It felt almost like a separate world, one in which she and Desmond would carve out their own niche of trust, courage like flint, igniting deep within their intertwined fates. "I believe in us," Laelani said softly, looking up into Desmond's eyes, which held a glimmer of hope. "Me too. And I won't let you down." His words brushed against her like an embrace, binding them together in shared vulnerability, a fragile promise cloaked in determination. As echoing laughter filled the house, they stood in a cocoon woven from wildflowers and reckless ambition, ready to dismantle the webs of deceit that had ensnared them. The first step toward trust was often the hardest, but as he took her hand, a silent vow hung between them, laced with both heat and heart, a path forward into the unknown. Scene 94. The power of choice. The sun dipped low over the manicured gardens of Sinclair Manor, casting a warm golden hue that seemed to dance among the vibrant blooms. Laelani Sinclair stood on the terrace, the smooth stone cool against her bare feet, her heart racing as she gazed out at the rolling hills beyond. The air was fragrant with the scent of lilacs and freshly mowed grass, but today its sweetness felt heavy with indecision. Laelani clenched her jaw tightly, the remnants of her late cousin's laughter echoing in her mind, reminding her of joyous moments that now seemed distant. It had only been weeks since they had last shared secrets beneath these very trees, but grief had become a cloak that suffocated her spirit. Her gaze shifted to the horizon, where shadows mingled with the dying light, stirring restlessness deep within her chest. Freedom, she thought, was not just a dream born of her imagination, it was a choice she had yet to embrace. "Is everything all right, my lady?" Desmond Carver, her enigmatic butler, stepped onto the terrace, his presence exuding a quiet strength that met her fraying edges. His brow furrowed slightly as he noted the steel in her stance. There was that unyielding intensity in his eyes again, the way they darkened just so when he watched her, setting her pulse racing anew. "Just contemplating," Laelani replied, turning to face him, the evening air swirling around them like a lover wrapped in a gentle embrace. With a half smile, she added, "About choices, you could say." Desmond stepped a little closer, and she felt a magnetic pull, yet hesitated. His voice was low and serious, laced with a vulnerability that had a way of disarming her. Choices, my lady? Or are they merely illusions presented to you? Often we are given paths, but seldom do we venture off the well-trodden ones. His words struck her with unexpected force. Was he speaking of her marriage to Victor? Of their lives encased in silk and satin, while danger lurked just outside their walls? "Do you ever wish you could choose differently, Desmond?" she asked softly, her heart pounding against her ribcage as she thought of a life unbound, adventurous, and alive with the unexpected. He met her gaze, his expression unreadable for a heartbeat, before he replied, "Every day. But choice comes with risk. Sometimes the ghosts of our decisions haunt us longer than we expect." The air grew heavier between them, the unspoken tension thickening like a fog. She remembered the thrill of their stolen moments, the warmth of his hand against hers, the electric brush of their shoulders as they moved through the house, sharing glances that sparked and ignited an irresistible chemistry. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted from the front yard. Laelani's heart skipped as she shifted her attention toward the commotion. Voices raised in anger, the sharp crack of a door slamming echoed across the estate, disrupting their charged exchange. She ventured a few steps closer to the edge of the terrace, curiosity piqued. "That sounds like Cora and Daniel," Desmond observed, already moving towards the sound with purpose. "They're likely in another heated debate over their upcoming engagement. What can they possibly be arguing about now?" Laelani mused aloud, confidence blooming inside her. For too long, she had allowed others' disputes to dictate her emotions and decisions. As they reached the grassy expanse, Cora's shrill voice pierced the evening air. "It's not just an arrangement for show, Daniel. This is our future, and I refuse to." But Daniel's commanding voice interrupted her, laced with frustration. "Refuse? You didn't hear a word I said about the risks involved, did you? It's not just your heart on the line." Laelani exchanged glances with Desmond, the corners of her lips twitching in amusement. They both stepped into the stress of this tempestuous argument, where emotions bubbled like the champagne that Cora had yet to touch. Laelani spoke up, laughter simmering within her voice as she approached the squabbling couple. "I imagine neither of you has considered the power of choice in all this passionate debating." Cora halted, eyes flashing with indignation, yet there was a subtle flicker of gratitude beneath her bluster. "What do you know about choices, Laelani? You hid away while others were forced to make theirs." The provocation hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to unleash its storm. Desmond steadied himself beside Laelani and murmured, "It's more than simply making a choice. It's also the courage to face the consequences." Laelani's heart all but soared at that moment. This was not only a struggle of wits, but a dance of desires, each choice swirling in their midst like the heady fragrance of the blooms around them. "Perhaps we should all take a moment to reflect," Laelani declared, her determination shining brightly. "After all, isn't that what living truly is?" The sun dipped behind the hills, shadows weaving between the four of them, each choice, each word, a delicate thread in this tapestry of their lives. The power of choice, indeed. Scene 95. Between duty and love. Laelani stood before the grand window of her sitting room, the early morning sun spilling across the marbled floor, brightening the small room, but not her heart. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, a low hum of discontent vibrating through her. Outside, the gardens of Sinclair Manor were alive, their colours bursting forth in vibrant splendour, yet the beauty held little appeal for her today. The gentle rustle of the leaves danced on the breeze, whispering reminders of a life that felt increasingly distant, one of choices, passions, and freedom. The tranquil nature of the morning was deceiving, as her mind swirled with the tumult of her rising affections for Desmond. Each passing moment with him left her torn between the expectations of her family and the undeniable pull of desire. But could she truly abandon everything, her heritage, her reputation, for a dream wrapped in mystery? The door creaked open, and there he was, Desmond Carver, still clad in his dark, tailored suit, the sunlight catching the sharp angles of his face just right. The man was a force of nature, intelligent, enigmatic, and achingly alluring. "Lady Laelani," he said, his voice smooth yet tinged with an urgent fervour. He stepped closer, the air thickening with an electricity that seemed to connect them like a taut string ready to snap. "May I assist you today?" A hint of a smile teased the corners of her mouth, but it faltered against the weight of her thoughts. "You already managed to assist me in more ways than you know, Desmond." They stood in silence, letting the seconds stretch between them, thick with unspoken words. Laelani could feel her heart hammering in her chest. How did he affect her so profoundly? "Do you ever think of escaping?" Desmond broke the stillness, his eyes searching hers, their depths hinting at a shared understanding of being bound. "Not just from this place, but from," he paused, measuring his words, "from everything that holds you back." Laelani breathed in deeply, summoning courage. All the time. Eager to push against societal chains, she stepped toward him, her boldness compelled by a longing she could no longer ignore. "Maybe it's not a matter of running away, but," her voice dropped to a whisper, "running towards something." Desmond held her gaze, his expression a blend of intrigue and urgency, as if they were the only two souls in a crumbling world. The room seemed to evaporate, the boundaries of duty and family fading away, leaving just the two of them ensnared in a moment ripe with potential. "Is that something you could see for us?" he asked, tilting his head, encouraging her with warmth. "A future of our making, perhaps?" Tension thickened around them as Laelani stepped closer, lifting her hand to touch his sleeve, tracing the outline of the fabric as if it could anchor her to this burgeoning reality. Her heart raced with anticipation, a potent cocktail of fear and hope. "Desmond, I." But before she could complete her thought, a distant commotion erupted from outside, the shouts winding their way through the manor, quickly drowning out her words. Laelani glanced toward the window, her heart plummeting. For a moment she forgot the potential love blooming between them, her unease flaring as she remembered the dangerous shadows looming over her life. "We shouldn't," she breathed, torn between the joy of the moment and the weight of her obligations. "I don't want to be the reason you feel trapped," he replied, his voice low yet firm. Yet something ignited in her, a fire fueled by the wild thoughts racing through her mind, forcing her to squelch her hesitation. Just as uncertainty hung in the air, Laelani took the plunge, bridging the space between them.